I'd like to welcome y'all back to another episode of Beyond the Fear podcast, the place where y'all come for motivation, inspiration, uplifting, and an overall positive message. I'm your host, DJ. And today's episode is crazy because I was having a conversation with a few of my friends about how easy it is to forget or how easy it is to assume that somebody doesn't go through something just because on the outside it looks like they have things figured out, and I've seen that a lot. I see it a lot. I see it at the gym, like when I'm on a treadmill and I'm walking. I don't know, for some reason it's just easier for me to walk without music than it is with music. So sometimes I'll have my headphones in but just no music playing. For whatever reason, it's just easier for me. But as I'm walking or whatever, I was listening to these ladies' conversation, and it was like, one of the weirdest things because they were, well, it wasn't even weird because it happens, but it just made me realize that, man, all of us do it, but they would just be watching people. They were just watching people in the gym as they're on the treadmill and just talking about them, like how, um, like if somebody isn't struggling with weight or whatever, oh, they got it so easy. Oh, they have it made. That body, they don't have to work that hard for that body, whatever the case may be. And it's just like, but we don't know what they went through to get to this point. Like, yes, now it may feel or it may look like, oh, it's so easy for them, or this is so natural for them. They're not struggling. They're not doing this, all of those things. And those things may be true at this point in their life now, but you don't know what they went through to get there. That you don't know how many times they failed, how many times they did struggle, how many times they did want to quit, how many times they may have quit and had to come back to it to get to this point. And I brought that up because me and a couple of friends were having a similar type of conversation, just about like celebrities and people who were around us at the time. And it's just like, and again, I'm not gonna say like I didn't think like that at one point in time, like, oh, this person here really got their life together, man. Like I would be able to do that too if I was born, with the quote unquote silver spoon in my mouth and things like that. A lot of us think like that, especially for the people who weren't born with those advantages or weren't born in better positions, with more money or more connections, whatever the case may be. And I think that it becomes so easy to say, hey, well, if I did have those things, if that was a possibility, I could have easily, been further in life. And you don't know because you don't know what trials and tribulations come with that life. You don't know. We just assume, oh man, you got all the money in the world, or your parents got all the money in the world. Your life was so easy. You didn't struggle. And granted, their struggle may have not looked like my struggle, but that doesn't mean that they didn't struggle. Their struggle may have looked like, instead of being able to have 15 pairs of shoes, because it may be a rough year in the market and, money isn't coming in the way it was. Well, you can only get three pair of shoes instead of the 15, or you can't get the top level designer. You may have to get two levels down or whatever the case may be. We don't know what those struggles were like. We also don't know what our mentality would have been like, because I can honestly say for sure, I know that my mentality, if I was born and raised in money and with money, wouldn't be the mentality that I have now. So I don't know where I would be. I don't know for a fact that I wouldn't be one of them, spoiled, bratty, you know what I'm saying, just whiny children. I don't know. I wouldn't be. I know that I can say that I wouldn't be now because I wasn't raised in it. I don't know what I would be. I don't know what those struggles are. But the point is, people, all of us, we have our struggles. All of us have our tough times. All of us have these walls that we have to climb, these trials and tribulations that we have to get through to become who we need to become. Just because our struggles look different doesn't mean that it's not a struggle. Just because, from my perspective, if someone was to talk about, yeah, we weren't able to do our annual trip to Italy, or our annual trip to France, Greece, whatever. Um, because our dad is having a down year at the job or whatever, the money ain't coming in the way it used to. Yeah, I might look and be like, wow, there was a time when I would look at it and be like, that's what you complaining about? That's what you're whining about, not being able to go overseas to your luxury hotels and all of this stuff. But for them, that is a struggle. For them, that is them struggling. That's them going through hard times. That's what struggle looks like for them, because they're used to a certain standard, living life a certain way and at a certain level. And now they have to live it at a lower level, and they have to live below the means that they're used to, or below the level that they're used to. So for them, that is a struggle. For me, it would still look like, because again, I don't experience life at that level. So even when they have to come down a few notches, that's still luxurious to me and through my eyes, from my perspective. But from their perspective, that's a struggle. That's a downgrade. That's them having less than what they're used to having. And so I had to understand that life is all about perspectives, because obviously from certain perspectives, struggles aren't going to look like struggles. Struggles aren't going to seem like struggles. So for someone who has to go from Michelin star restaurants to whatever is right under that, and that's a struggle for them. But to someone who doesn't even know where their next meal is coming from, they're not trying to hear that. They're not trying to hear that you're struggling. They're not trying to hear that you're going through hard times when you can still put food in your mouth, when you still got clothes on your back, when you still got a roof over your head, when you still know that you have a job. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about perspective. That doesn't mean that the person who comes from their privileged life isn't struggling. It's just your struggle and this other person's struggle are two different things. And for them, they're like, you're not struggling. You just may have to take less than you may have, but you still have. And I think that it's all about that perspective for someone who doesn't have, to hear someone who does have talk about, I'm struggling because I don't have as much as I used to have, or I don't have as much as, or I can't do the things that I want to do at the level that I want to do them, but I still can go and do things. I can understand how it would be frustrating, but that doesn't mean that that person who has, isn't going through a struggle. It just looks very, very different than what the person who doesn't have is going through. It's just two totally different struggles. It doesn't make that person's struggle no longer a struggle. It's just something, it's just different. It looks very different from, obviously those are two very extremes, because again, I can understand someone who doesn't have not wanting to hear someone who has, but has to do less, or has it less than what they had at one point in time. I can understand that, for sure. But again, they're just going back to what I was talking about. We don't know what people are going through. We don't know what struggles they've been through to get to where they are. Like, yes, they may be in a point now where they have their stuff together, where they have it all figured out. They have their plan. They have things mapped out, and everything is just going well for them. Or that could just be how it appears on the outside, and on the inside they could be struggling. You just don't know. So we were just talking about that back and forth, and debate got a little heated because, again, for the examples that I was just talking about, and they were just like, you can't sit here and tell me that someone who doesn't have isn't struggling more than someone who just doesn't have as much as they used to. I said, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the struggle isn't harder for this person, or the struggle is worse for this person compared to that person. I'm not saying that. What I am saying though is that if somebody is living at a certain level, I don't care what level it is, and because of circumstances, for whatever reasons, bad decision making or bad economy, bad year, whatever it is, have to live below their what they're used to, that is an adjustment. That is a struggle. Those are hard times for people, no matter what it is. I'm not saying one is more or less. Um I'm not saying one. All I'm saying is that it's a struggle, like for either side. Yes, one may be in a tougher situation than the other, but that doesn't mean that we get to minimize how they feel. Again, from our perspective, yes, we can say one is struggling more than the other, or one person's struggle is harder than the other. Cool, that's for us. That's from our perspective. But from that person's perspective, who lives a certain lifestyle and has to live under that lifestyle because of a tough year, whatever the case may be, we don't get to minimize that struggle for them, their struggle through their eyes and from their perspective. And so that's what we're just going back and forth about it, because it's like, who are we to tell someone you don't know about struggle, you don't know about hard times, just because their hard times still look like a good time to us? That's because of our perspective. That's because we've never experienced those things. We've never lived life at those heights. So when we hear somebody say something, and I'm just using that as an example, oh, we didn't get to go. I remember one summer we didn't get to go, like I said, to our trip to Italy or whatever. We looking like, man, that ain't no struggle. You ain't struggling for real. You don't know about hard times. But for them, that is a struggle. For them, that is what hard times look like for them from their perspective. And that's fair. You know what I'm saying? We have to allow room to understand that life isn't lived one way. Life isn't only lived, struggle doesn't look the same for everybody. Struggle isn't just one thing. Struggle doesn't just look like, oh, I come from the projects, I come from the hood. We know, where our next meal was gonna come from. We, what I'm saying, we sleeping in the car, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, that is a struggle for sure. And that's a struggle that a lot of us would look at and be like, okay, dang, that is a struggle. That's hard time. But someone having to live less than what they've been living, and not being able to take this many trips, not being able to get the designer that they want, not being able to have the clothes that they want, a child going through something like that, for them, for their perspective, from what they know, that is also a struggle. And I think that, and so that kind of led into a bigger conversation of, we gotta allow room to understand that struggle is going to look different for different people, just like success is going to look different for different people. There's someone out there who is homeless, jobless, who can get a job at McDonald's and be on cloud nine, be the happiest person in the world because they got a job and now they're able to afford a place to stay at some point, even if it's a studio apartment, a 1 bedroom apartment. That's success to them. And somebody else may look at that and be like, no, you still struggling. But in their eyes, no, I'm successful. No, I'm good because I remember where I was. And now I remember when I couldn't afford. I remember when I had to sit outside of the dollar store and ask for money. Now I can proudly walk in the dollar store and I can afford anything that I want in there. And I can also, when I come out, give that next person some change. That wasn't my life a year ago. That wasn't my life 2 years ago. I was that person begging, wishing I could go inside and afford something, sitting outside of McDonald's, wishing I could afford to go in there to get a burger. Now I work there and I can afford to get that burger. That's success. That's I'm making it in their eyes for someone who just went through that. But for someone who is living a better life, they might be like, no, you still struggling. Again, it's all about perspective. So who is the person who's in that scenario? Who is the person who's living the better life to look at that person and be like, no, you still struggling. No, you're not successful. You don't know what that person been through. If that person can look at their life, and I mean, Look at it through unbiased eyes, realistically, and say, hey, I know I work at McDonald's. I know that McDonald's may not be the best job in the world, but even with all that being said, I still am successful because I know where I come from. I know where I was just 2 years ago, or just a year ago, just 6 months ago. I know that there was a time when I couldn't even go into the dollar store and buy the cheapest thing in the dollar store, whatever the cheapest thing was. I can do that now. So nobody can tell me that I'm not successful. Nobody can tell me that I'm not making it or I'm not in a better place. You know what I'm saying? It's all about perspective. It's all about looking at things through that person's eyes. So when we flip to the other side of the struggle, if somebody is used to a certain lifestyle and they have to do less than, they have the right to say, hey, this was my struggle. This is what struggle looked like for me. You know what I'm saying? And so we were just having that debate. And then, again, just to hear people talking about just assuming things about people. And again, like I said, I'm not downing anybody because we all do it. I'm not gonna say act like I've never done it. We just naturally do it. We are naturally just assume when we see people, like when we see celebrities, oh man, I would love to have this person's life. Like, yes, you would love to have this person's life now, like because what they're doing now, but you don't know what potential struggles they went through. We don't know the things that they choose not to talk about. You know what I'm saying? We don't know those things. We don't know the things that they had to go through, the things that they had to see, things that they had to do to get to where they are now. And it's just so easy to see somebody doing well and to assume that everything went well for this person. Everything was easy for this person. This person never had to struggle. This person never had to go through hard times. This person never had to overcome, had to pick themselves up, had to, you know what I'm saying, climb those tough walls and those tough ladders because we assume that the only way to get to success is to have somebody to already have the advantage. And that's not the case. Or just assume that there was an advantage that this person was given. And also to assume that if you had that advantage, if you were born into a certain family, if you were born with money, that would mean that you would automatically be successful. And that may not be the case because you may be the person who assumes everything is going to be given to me. I don't have to work for it. And you might be that person who fails because of that mentality. You don't get to where you need to be because everything was given to you and the road was paved, but because you didn't put in the work, the necessary work that you needed to put in, you don't get to where you needed to be. You don't become who you were supposed to be or you had the opportunity to be because you're not putting in the work, you're not taking the steps, you're not climbing the ladder yourself. You expecting somebody to push you up each rung of the ladder, and you know what I'm saying, why you just sit there and chill. So you just never know. You may have been born just because you're born with the advantages of which, or just because you're born in the better position doesn't mean that you automatically make it, because I'm assuming that there's still a level of work ethic that you have to have. And maybe, and just maybe, there are those people, because I don't want to rule that out either. Maybe there are those people who have had to do absolutely nothing, and absolutely everything has been given to them, and they haven't had to work at all to get to where they are. So maybe there are those people, and for those rare few, okay, or that rare opportunity, okay. But I'm pretty sure for most opportunities, even if they're born in an advantageous position, they still have had to put some level of work in. They've still had to go to school. They've still had to do something to say, hey, you've helped me get this far. Now I have to pick up the baton and go the rest of the way. I have to now make my mark my way based off of what I know and what I can do. So it's a lot that goes into everything, you know what I'm saying? So there are trials and tribulations for everyone, and struggle is going to look different for everybody. Success is going to look different for everybody. You know what I'm saying? There are going to be people. I know for me, my first my first job, um, my first job, I think I was making like eight $8, $8.98. I think I was making like $8.98 to wash dishes. That was my very first job. My goal at that time was, man, I just want to make $10. $10 an hour. That's what success looked like to me. Again, it's all about perspective. You know what I'm saying? It's all about your point of view. So what's a struggle to you, maybe you living good, because you, again, I know I've said something like this before. You never know who's looking at you, the position that you in, and praying for that position, because your position looks like success to them, because they feel like, for like, your your position looks like success to them. But to even put it in a different perspective, it's the same thing, but just saying it in a different way. Your struggle looks like success to them. There's somebody right now who, if you was just to talk about all the things that you're struggling with, would say, I'll take all of that. Everything that you just named, I'll take all of that, because it's better than what I'm going through. There's somebody who will take the debt, take the problems at home, take the problems with work, take all of that. Everything that you're sitting there complaining about. And I'm not telling you not to complain about it, but the things that you're struggling with, your struggle looks like success to somebody, because their struggle feels way worse than what you're going through. Because you may have a job, you may have a family, and that family may get on your nerves. But for them, it's like you have people who support you. Again, the way that they're looking at it, I have nobody. It's just me. Everybody who was around me is gone now. I have no house. I have no car. I may not even have a bike. You know what I'm saying? And I'm struggling, and they'll hear your story and be like, bro, I'll trade places with you. Ma'am, I'll trade places with you any given day. So I always say, no matter what you're going through, it could always be worse. And there are probably people going through worse and wishing that they were going through what you were going through, because they would much rather go through your problems than the problems that they're having. Does not mean that your problems aren't problems. Don't mean that your struggles aren't struggles. Don't mean that your hard times aren't hard times. It just simply means that it could be worse. And I'm pretty sure that there's something in there for you to be happy about, to enjoy, to be appreciative of. You know, that you woke up, that you have an able body. You're able to use your eyes, your ears, your arms, your legs, your heart's beating, your health may be in a pretty good condition. You may not be perfect, but you know, you're in generally good health. There are so many things to be thankful for. There's so many things to be appreciative of. And again, not saying that that you shouldn't complain, or let me say vent, because I don't, especially if it's things that you can control, if it's things that you know you can change. I would much rather you put the energy into trying to make those changes, trying to make the changes in whatever, whether it's your job, trying to make the changes in your relationship. I'm not saying change the person, but see if there's anything that can help to better the relationship or the marriage, or your relationship with your friends, your family, whatever it is. I would much rather us put the energy into seeing if we can make it better, as opposed to just complaining and doing nothing. Now, if you just complaining, but you also putting the work in, cool. But I would much rather just, vent it, because of course you need to get it out. As someone who just came off of a reset, I understand the importance of getting it out. I understand the importance of telling someone, preferably somebody you trust, like what's going on, how you feeling, and just being able to get it out, be able to say it, to be able to just say, oh, this is making me mad, or oh, this person's frustrating me, or man, this is annoying, or I hate that this is happening. Whatever the case may be, you definitely need to get it out. Don't hold it in. But once you do that, now it's time to start figuring out how you can change the situation, how you can make that situation better, how you can make that situation work for you. Because I think that, especially as a friend who listens to people, vent about something and then put in the work to try to change it, and then to listen to people who just complain about stuff constantly and never try to change it, is draining on a lot of people. It's not just you. It's draining on the friends too. And then when the friends get to the point to where it's like, okay, I can't listen to this anymore, especially if, you're not doing anything to change it. Now there's this weird energy between you and your friend, because it's like people get tired of hearing that stuff. You know what I'm saying? When there's no changes being made. But I don't want to turn this episode into that. But there's nothing wrong with venting your issues. There's nothing wrong with getting it out, especially when you're going to a source that you trust, and you just laying it out, just getting it out there to get it off your chest, so you're not holding it in and then it's not building up pressure inside of you. So get it out, but also just as important, or even more important, start figuring out how to change that, how to improve that relationship, or how to improve that situation, or how to remove yourself from it, get that better job, whatever the case may be. Do those things. Those things are just as important. But getting back on topic, everybody goes through some type of struggle. Everybody's struggle is going to look different based on their circumstances. I don't expect I don't expect a household that brings in, let's say, 8 figures. I don't expect their success and their struggle to look like someone's household that brings in 6 figures, whose house, and I don't expect that household struggles and successes to look like someone who brings in, 5 figures. It's just different levels of success and struggle. Doesn't mean that they don't struggle up here, because they do. Doesn't mean that they don't struggle here, because they do. Doesn't mean that they don't struggle here, because they do. It's all about perspective. Now, I may look at it and again, before, or my initial thought might be, man, you ain't struggling. But then I have to put in that, I got to start putting on that hat of where I lead with understanding, and understanding that is a struggle for them from their perspective. That is a struggle, because they're having to figure out how to get back to where they were, or how to now live here in this space when they're used to living in a higher space. That's still a struggle. And that, is just about, because I would understand as someone who doesn't even know what it's like to live in that space. I would understand that there are way worse possibilities, or way worse places to be in than where you are. But for them who've never even had to live here, they don't even comprehend what life would be like here, because they've never had to be there. They never had to be in a lesser position. So they don't even comprehend, in their minds, having to go from a 7, 8 figure household to a 6 figure household. A high end 6 figure household is, what I'm saying, damn near the end of the world for them. For someone who's had to live off of, 30, 40, 50,000 a year, they're like, bro, you're going to be fine. You're A-okay. But again, it's all about perspectives, because the person who's had to live off of that 30, 40,000 a year understands that it's doable. But that person who's lived in those upper, households don't understand that. Just taking that one step down is hard for them. That's struggle for them. That's, oh my gosh, I'm struggling right now. We're going through a struggle. We're going through hard times, and rightfully so. From their perspective, those are hard times. From someone else's perspective, like, y'all still making it, y'all still living good. But again, it's all about perspective. We don't get to tell them that they aren't struggling. We don't get to tell them that those times aren't hard. We don't, because we don't get to tell you how that affects your life. Those are changes that are happening in your life. Those changes didn't happen to us. And vice versa. So if somebody who was living in that, who had a household of 30, 40, 50,000 gets to a place to where they're making 150,000, that person, that household that is making that high end six figures or seven figures don't get to look at you and be like, you ain't made it. You ain't successful. That ain't nothing. Because again, where you from your perspective, hell yeah, I'd have made it. I went from 30,000 in my household to 150. Yeah, we can do some things. Yeah, yeah. So it's all about perspectives. So we have to learn how to stop judging people's lives, because, or stop looking at people's lives through our own senses of struggle and success, because somebody's success may look like struggle to someone else. Someone's struggle may still look like success to another person. It's all about perspective. And we have to start looking at things through their eyes, the person who's telling us. So if somebody's telling me that this is a success to them, and it may not look like success to me, I'm still going to view it as a success for them, and vice versa. If somebody's telling me that they're struggling and I can look at it and I'm like, that don't look like struggle to me, but still to them it is. So I respect their perspective of where they come from or where they've been. This is now a struggle, or this is now a success compared to where I was. And when we put it in that perspective, it's fair because they're comparing it from where they used to be to where they are now. So that's why it's a success or a failure, because they're either in a higher or a lower place than where they were. So from their perspective, not mine, but from their perspective, that's a success, that's a struggle. But everybody's successes and everybody's struggles are going to look different based off of where they come from. All we can do is accept that that's what struggle looks like for them, or accept that's what success looks like for them, because it's their perspective, it's their lives, it's their success, it's their struggle. There's no need to insert ourselves into their situation. So the next time, you have a friend, family member, whatever, talking about their success or talking about their struggle, whatever the case may be, no matter how you may feel personally, just try to your best to look at it from their perspective, from where they were to where they are now, and just, be there if they're struggling, and cheer them on if they're being successful, whatever the case may be. But stop judging them or assuming these or telling them that they're not in a place that they feel like they're in just based off of your perspective. But that's it for today's episode, y'all. I want to thank everybody for listening to the podcast on whatever platforms y'all are listening on. And to everybody watching on YouTube, please continue to watch, share, like, comment, subscribe. And until the next time we meet, y'all be blessed.